Hey guys, it's filur, also known as 944. Don't forget Thorin's YouTube channel.
Right, I'm here for another episode of Reflections, and my guest for this one is going to be ScreaM, who is a veteran Swedish Counter-Strike player from the early 2000s. Let's just start at the very beginning, ScreaM, and get this obvious thing out of the way, which is any modern-day fan of Counter-Strike is going to go, ScreaM, he is a Belgian player from Source who was sick at headshots. It's like, the worst thing about that, bro, is it's one thing if someone just has the same name. Bro, he spelt it the same way with the capital M at the end. What do you think of that? Come on.
Well, he's a Source player, or used to be, and apparently, from what I've heard, it was quite common. There was a XisM, there was a Karn, and there was a ScreaM, and probably some more. But what can I say? I don't know how old he is. He was probably.
Oh, he's way younger than you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you take it as flattery? Is it cool in that sense? Are you annoyed? Because unfortunately, he has made it more famous since he became like a huge star, you know.
Yeah, he is a lot more famous than I am today. Of course, he played a lot longer as well. But it did quite annoy me in the beginning. But then again, I kind of left the scene. Didn't really matter that much. But initially, I was quite annoyed, to be honest.
Sure.
But yeah. Apparently, he got comments from everyone else complaining that I am the original. But
fair enough. What about? I think the place to start with you, if people don't know, is you were actually one of the first people in the CS scene. So if people don't know, you were playing right back basically at the beginning of the game, like 2000, 2001. And if people don't know, back then I always tried to tell people the way that esports is very different is actually there weren't necessarily tons of kids playing and teenagers. Actually, if you remember, people like Potti were more the standard. It was like the older, IT professionals with a PC and internet. So when you came along, you were what, 15, 16? You were pretty young, right?
Yeah, I was 15 when I started, and it's correct. I'm one of the originals, along with Potti and HeatoN, etc. But back then, it wasn't as accessible with internet, computers, and plug and play how it is now. How it is today, you had to install Half-Life. You needed to have the CD key for that. Then you needed to download a mod and place it in correct folders, etc. And not everyone could handle the know-how and tech to do all of that, and let alone people did not have good computers and internet connection back then. But,
I'm sure when I think of your style of play, you must have been someone who got, when they knew you were 16, you were just getting accused of cheating all the time, I'm guessing.
That was the case, specifically because I actually came from Quake 1.
Oh, right.
So that's why I was very swiftly good in Counter-Strike, because I knew how to bunny jump.
Right.
And since it's the source engine, which is derived from the id engine, so it's the exact same mechanics.
Yes.
So I could be in places before people even left their spawns, more or less. But over the years, they toned that down, more or less. I started in beta 5.2. when you had extreme speeds.
Yes, it was really arcadey, right? Yeah.
Yes, and you could jump, and you had perfect accuracy with all the weapons.
Were you a fan of those early betas? Did you like that better than the release?
Yes, my personal favorite was actually 1.3. It was a good balance between the speed, and it was when you could still jump perfectly well with the MP5 and the Deagle, all the pistols you could jump around with and have perfect accuracy. And while you had more ADS movement with AWP without being punished.
In the early days of CS, I actually am lucky that I have a good memory, and I did actually nerd out back in the day and try and find out about scenes. Like, obviously, the Swedish one was the best scene, so I obviously tried to find out all the teams and where do people come from. And I maybe know a detail that people might not know, which is, even though you played with this player later, you were in one of those really early clans where it was just like players. It's not like a professional team. It was a team called XisM, and actually, as far as I know, wasn't Al later on the player you played? Wasn't he in this team as well?
He was in this team, absolutely. He was called Anal back then.
Who was he to you then? What was this guy like?
In real life, I mean, we became
In any
good
sense,
friends.
yeah. Who was this guy at the time when you were both? Were you both young?
Yeah, we're both young. He's 1 or 2 years older than me, I think. But he also played some Quake. But he was quite shy guy, and he stuck to himself on the internet. But for some, we established a great connection very early, and he didn't. Back then, we didn't. There was no Discord and Ventrilo or Mumble even. Then there was some
I see.
software like Roger Wilco or something.
Oh,
like that.
sure,
So
yes.
there was not many people sat on VoiceCom back then.
True.
So it took a while before we actually spoke. I think.
Right, it was a few years, right?
Yeah. Yes. So I think the first time we met in real life was at like some internet cafe or something. I don't really remember when.
Right.
So, but we departed from each other for some reason from XisM. He joined Too Easy, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And I joined Matrix. And then later we reunited when it was called All in mTw or Too Easy or whatever you want to call it. Had many names.
The one other player from this team. Go on.
He's one of my favorite players of all time.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, tell me why.
We were like internet best friends, so we always talked about everything during the games and after the games. So I liked his style of playing, and he was a very clever guy.
Sure, I mean, he was obviously also famous. Like I always tell people, in the modern day of CS, they have a concept now. It's actually called the support role, and you're the guy who backs people up. In some ways, didn't he kind of invent this role just by his personality?
Maybe I don't know. I don't really support those claims that the IG, like all the analysts today say, the IGLs do all of that. He's the only one checking the radar and all of that. I totally disagree with all of that. I think all the players should be capable of handling every situation themselves. But you have one or two or one primary IGL that sets the pace, and he was that in Too Easy, that he comes with the opener, so to say, and then everyone communicate and derive from that. I don't like that every commentator put all the responsibility on one guy to do that is not how it used to be, at least. Maybe it is like that today. I don't think so, at least, even though they say that. But
no, I get you. There was one other name actually in this team. It's just actually a bit self-indulgent to even ask this because no person watching is going to remember this unless they're really old school. But there was a guy who was an XisM who was basically one of those people who actually never made it to the top. He never became a big star. But I used to hear from back in the day from people like HeatoN, they thought this guy was really good. It was that player called Vonox. And they used to actually think this guy was like do you remember this player?
Vonox.
Am I thinking of the wrong person?
I think of the wrong person.
Oh, fair. Who else was in this team that was good?
So let's see. We had Tino the Ruler, Kuro the Cobra, Dracula, me. We had Anal, and we had Shogo, and LFE. Vonox came later.
Oh, fair enough then, right.
Did Potti and HeatoN say that he was?
I might have just misremembered, to be fair, mate. It was 20 plus years ago. I'm going off things I think I remember.
He did play in XisM though, but yeah, he didn't become any star.
Oh, he was just some okay player, right? I see. All right. What about, as you say, you were in Clan Matrix, right? People might forget this, but the Matrix team was one of the teams that played in the original qualifier to go to that famous CPL where Nip and X3 were in the finals. Yes. And you went to this land, and actually, at the time, your team was one of the top teams. It was like one of the up-and-comers where people thought you could maybe do some damage, right? Can you tell me something? Because if people don't remember, unfortunately, the setup went like this. At the time, obviously, ideally, everyone wanted to play from internet cafes in Stockholm because they're the best internet. You basically got an internet backbone, which back then was super OP. And since your team played from the Matrix Cafe, which was one of the famous cafes back then, along with your Cafe 9, and I mean, there wasn't Inferno Esports back then, but the famous ones. The problem you had, obviously, was This is why I bring up that you actually went to some lands. People used to just say, and even the other players would complain, like, nah, they're just onliners because they have like, one ping or something like that. What was your sense of being in this Matrix team? Did you used to get that a lot and think about that back then?
Well, everyone thought that Matrix cheated, actually.
Oh, right.
Before I joined them, I got a lot of questions whether my judgment of joining them in the first place, because they were heavily accused of cheating. But they were simply, they were good, and they had very good ping and good computers. And that did a lot, of course. We were all sitting on LAN. We had an audience every day watching us. If you remember the clan Ghoul game online.
Oh, yeah, of course. From Gothenburg, yeah.
Yeah, when we smashed them on clan base, they actually called our cafe and asked if they're cheating.
Right.
And then the manager's like, what the hell? Come here and watch. They're not cheating. But I always enjoy the camaraderie, so to say, to sit in LAN, everyone getting together and have fun that way.
Oh, did it have a good social vibe in the team?
Yeah, yes, we all had a good social vibe. That's what I like, the team building and getting to know friends, etc., like that. And we were pretty strong at that time. We actually did rival NIP when they were the strongest, and they felt that we were actually beating them on prax over and over, but it was 50-50. We did, though, however, not have any financial sponsorship from the cafe. We could only sit there and play for free.
Right.
So we never had any opportunity per se to go to those LAN outside the country.
Because actually, along those lines, let me follow up on that question. One thing I've always thought, and I can tell you, since another famous top Swedish team at the time was Nordic Division, I can tell you they felt the same thing, ScreaM, which is back then, they would always say, it's actually kind of bullshit to be in our teams, because within Sweden, which was the best country, we're like, top 3, top 4.
Yes.
But the problem is, obviously only NIP and Game Online, because they had money, because if you remember, the Game Online owner was like rich. They're the only teams that could afford to go to the CPLs in America.
Yes.
And so they would say, I'm watching this at home on like HLTV, and I'm seeing all these teams come like 5th, and it's like, dude, we'd destroy them. Like, we would have been 3rd if we got, but you couldn't go to the events because we were just so far away. It was so expensive, right?
Yeah, it's true. And we're all kids. I mean, I didn't have that kind of money to buy the tickets and the hotel, etc. I actually didn't have my own computer back then.
Wow, okay.
I got my first computer when I started playing World of Warcraft. So I always sat at either a cafe.
You were just there all day, I'm guessing, then, right?
Sorry?
You were just there all day, I'm guessing.
Yeah, as much as I could. So,
what
out of all the top players, I probably played the least.
Oh, right. Okay. Are you just someone where you only need like a little bit of practice to keep sharp or something? You're not a guy who grinds?
Yeah. I generally don't need a lot of warm up to go full, but I played a lot of console gaming before I started very early playing games in general, but we had a computer at home which we shared with several brothers, so I took every time I could take. Otherwise, I was playing Quake at friend's place or whatever.
The irony of the Belgian player called ScreaM is people might think the way you could separate is to say, well, he's the one who had like really sick aim, but like that's even worse because, bro, one of the things you're really famous for is you had like a really nice like AK headshot aim, didn't you? That's kind of your skill, right?
Yeah, I guess that's my primary, not what I'm known for the aim. But I had pretty good aim back then. As I said, it comes from Quake, all the shafting and railing, etc. So. And CS players back then, they tend to be their first game as well. So I had a lot of advantage coming from a much faster paced game to begin with. So it's not hard to track those people with aim. But,
yeah, go on.
No.
Oh, by the way, one of the things I thought I'd touch on, because it's going to actually be a topic in this interview, it'll be a theme, is obviously in your career, like I'll tell you, I watched all the games back then. I have a very good memory. I've even gone back and watched them. You were one of the best players from Sweden, but obviously people will find out in this interview if they go look up on Wikipedia. You didn't have an insane career of 6-7 years and all the majors that a lot of other players did. And so one of the obvious questions at some point later I'm going to ask is like, why this team? Why this team? But I get the sense from what you said earlier, and when I think of some of the other teams you joined, you weren't the guy who was doing it. Like, put it this way, HeatoN and Potti, I knew these guys quite well, and they were really ruthless, bro. All they cared about was like, they don't even care who you are. If you're just the best right now, you can join our team. Let's win. And as soon as you're not good, by the way, get the fuck out. But I got the vibe with you, like you said about Arl. Didn't you kind of like also try to join teams where it was like friends of yours and people that you wanted to be around? You wasn't just for the career, right?
Yes, I was never any career driven at all. I had my personal goals, which I wanted to achieve, but it was nothing about playing with this team or whatever.
Right.
I actually turned down many offers quite often, all the time.
Oh, okay.
I actually played with those I wanted to play with, and those were my real life friends. And sure, I had a blast playing with Potti and HeatoN. They were great guys, and we had a lot of fun and good chemistry there. But at the end of the day, I chose Matrix because I wanted to play there, and specifically to easy there. That was probably the best CS time that I had there.
Sure. Can you give it? Obviously, it's a lot of years later. No one's going to get upset. Can you tell us some of the other teams you could join? Are there any famous ones we might know?
Well, NIP. They were on to me for a very long time.
Oh, right.
So I could also go to SK there before I quit there.
Right, I see.
So but I just declined. Same with after my trip to Dallas 2000, and I'm not sure if it was 2001 or the summer when I played for Esport United.
Oh, right, the mixed team one. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, they wanted me to join.
Oh, sure. Sure. By the way, let's get into some of this. Yeah, go on. Did you have another one?
No, I was saying I performed pretty decent there, I think. Yeah, so.
Yeah, no, we'll get to that. Don't worry. Right. Obviously, let's talk about this NIP period, because the problem here is this. This is a great example of what old esports was like. After NIP won the championship, people don't know, back then there used to be so many months before the next lands. Like you might have like one European land, but the next CPL would be like 6 months away.
There were twice a year.
And so the problem was, even though they just won this tournament, they actually, in the meantime, the whole team's got like dismantled. Like XQ was out, and the vesslan was out, and then they would change. And so what they did is they came to your team and they got you and they got Dracula. Right? I've got a question for you, which is, even back then, people did flame Dracula and say, he's only really in this team because ScreaM wants to be in the team with him, and because they wanted ScreaM. Is that true? Is that a hater comment?
Yes, it's true.
Was he a friend of yours? Is that why it's awkward?
Yeah, he is. Okay, so in Matrix, they were trying to pull me from Matrix for quite some time. And I told Matrix about this, and I showed them look, they're trying to ninja me here. But I did not want that. I enjoy the team, and I always like to play against the better team or the strongest opponents, because that's what I think is more funny than to be the best. But since I didn't really want to leave, I came up with a great idea. I said, yeah, if you can bring Dracula, if I can take him with me, then sure, I will come. And I thought that was bulletproof, because normally you don't want to be 6 players in a team.
Right. This was like an excuse to get them to not sign you. It was by saying like, well, you have to sign this guy you probably won't sign. Is that like what you're implying?
Yes. Right. And number 2, Dracula played with Potti and HeatoN for some reason at some he behind everyone's back, and I don't think they liked him. So I took that as well. Like, oh, okay, this if he can come, then I will come. And lo and behold, how I misjudged that, and they completely owned me and said, "Sure, Patte, bring him."
Okay. I mean, in a way, though, like that must also show that HeatoN and Potti really held you in high respect, though. Like you were worth taking someone else as a package deal, right?
Yes, yeah, they respected me. I mean, it was a mutual respect, and we both dedicated player, and we both were animals in the field. We aimed to win, and as you said, Potti and HeatoN, they were ruthless. They just took whatever they wanted because everyone else wanted to play Nip. You know, they're like, oh, Nip is dragging me, but I didn't want anything to do with that.
Right.
I wanted to play with my real friend.
I'm sure this is where you can give me an interesting story, because actually back then, publicly, very little came out. Basically what happened was NIP got a manager. It's actually the guy who later made that Swedish Esport League, if people don't know, and ran like Soul Gamed after BDS. And this manager guy basically came in, as far as I know, I think he'd worked in like music or something. And he came in and he was sort of like, yeah, I'm going to get like all sponsors and stuff here. And then as far as I know, the whole reason this team had to break up is he's never got any sponsors. Is that what was your version?
Talking about Gex, right?
I think so. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, he was a guy full of crap.
Oh, right. Okay.
He said, oh, we have this and we have that. I called him out on that, and he had jack shit. When that came surfaced, we disbanded.
Yeah. Well, could that team have been good?
The nip we had. It wouldn't have worked in the long run. So in hindsight, maybe that was an elaborate plan for all of them to get rid of Dracula. I don't know.
Okay.
I thought of that, but I don't know. But I don't think the chemistry would have worked with Potti, HeatoN, and Dracula at all.
Right.
And there too, they had to remove some guy to get Dracula in. So I don't think in the long run, because of how chemistry and personality differences, I don't think they would have.
Because one of the reasons I ask that is because even though someone listening to this interview might think, we just said that player wasn't that good. Yeah, but what people have to understand, and this is why we were talking about the versions of CS, is especially like the version you joined in 1.3, you could still in that game, if you were really good as a star, like people like Potti did just carry whole games, you know, people like HeatoN, like actually back then you didn't have to have all 5 players be strong. If you had the really good land play, you could kind of dominate, right?
Yes, it played more like Quake back in the days, but yes, Potti, HeatoN, they were Titans standing on their own base, and they also had Medion, which also was a Quaker, and Titan, and Executor was also really good, but he wasn't the same as the 3 pillars there that I mentioned.
Right.
Dracula was good. He had his own play style, and he could manage things, but he could not fit in that team, and he was not on their level. He was good at the time. He was, absolutely.
Since you played against and with HeatoN and Potti, probably the 2 most famous Swedish players except Forrest ever in CS, give me some thoughts. Who were these players? Like, what was their style? What were they good at?
Well, Potti was the Mr. Stable. He was always stable. He was always win-driven, so to speak. He didn't want to fuck around, do some... he always wanted to win. He didn't care about shining as long as he won. And that is what makes him a star player, first of all. And he had very good tactical thinking and game sense as well. But primarily, he knew how to be serious and take everything serious. He was an excellent athlete in that regards. HeatoN was also very great. He's super high energy. Kind of like me. He's shouting and just spewing energy, so to say. And he's also very tactical, excellent reflexes, reactions, and aim. Also great game sense. He functions. He also a winner, true winner. He carries to the bitter end, never gives up.
One thing I'd like to ask you actually as a follow-up about HeatoN is, obviously this is way back, we're talking like 2002, this is the really early days of CS. So at the time, even though these were the big names in CS, no one actually knew how long will CS last? Will it be a big esport for a long time? So the craziest thing I feel must be a bit surreal was, even though at the time he was a star in the little bubble of CS, in some ways HeatoN became one of those names that's like, if you ask people who are the most famous esports people ever, like he's up there with like Fatality and you know, the Korean StarCraft player.
And Boxer.
He's kind kind of like he's bigger than CS, right? It's kind of surreal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But he's an excellent personality. He's a showman, it is all his personality, and he earned it truly. And I'm very happy for him that he became that. So yeah, there's nothing else to say. He's great.
As you say, what happened was it was not that long before actually the next big CPL was coming up that obviously everyone had to focus on, because these are basically like the World Championship back then. The team broke up, and what happened was a bunch of them went to SK and made SK. That became the team that obviously won this next CPL. And then at the time, there's a little bit of history for people. Vesslan, who used to be in NIP, had gone and he'd worked with Nordic Division. And basically, I know Vesslan quite well. Vesslan's also quite ruthless. So what he did in Nordic Division in the meantime was he just gradually kicked people out and put in the players he wanted. And then when they came to this summer, though, because you were available, Al was available, a bunch of top players, he just for this CPL didn't do the normal Nordic Division team. They just made a mixed team, right? It was I mean, a couple of you weren't even properly signed, and you just went there and you came third at the big World Championship. Give me some story on this.
Well, they wanted to send me to LAN Arena 7 also, or whatever it was called, but I declined because for other reasons. I was very afraid of flights.
All right, okay.
So, but the second time when the CPL came on the table, then all talked me into that, basically. So after that, I got over the flight fear, so to say. But yeah, it was... for Esports United, it was me, Notorious, Brunk, all Swift, and vesslan, I think.
Yeah, it's a six-man lineup.
Yes, and we all rotated. I remember that. Yeah, I don't remember where Notorious came from.
I think he'd been out of the scene a little bit because he used to play Game Online in the year before, if you remember.
Yeah, maybe.
I think he'd had
a
few months off or something, maybe. I know Vesslan knew him and he picked him up, I think.
Yeah, yes, he played in USEC and Mafia and
there you go. That, yeah. Right, by the way, in this team, what about Notorious? This is another player that's kind of forgotten because he also had a short career, but I thought this guy was really good.
A fantastic player. He was an excellent shooter, and damn, I love this personality. He's a really funny guy. But I don't know what happened after that. If he quit, or I think
he didn't play much longer. Yeah,
I don't remember, but he was very good, really good actually, and I really enjoyed playing with him. He was funny, really funny, high energy.
One detail about this CPL people will forget is even though your team came third, the question is, should you come second? Because in the upper bracket final, you beat Game Online, but then in the lower bracket, you lost to them, and they got to go to the final. I felt like it should have been you in the final. Your team seemed better.
Yeah, yes. I don't remember exactly, but we did some mistakes that cost. I don't really remember. I thought we would actually win the entire thing, actually, based on how we played.
Okay. Were you just a very confident person?
I'm a very confident person. When in CS, I was extremely confident.
By the way, as you said, after this, understandably, Vesslan wanted you to join this team for real when he was taking over it, etc. Is there a reason why you chose not in this case? Because, I mean, at the time, Vesslan's quite a respected leader. He's obviously a good tactician and stuff, right?
Yes, because I didn't want to play with those players. Even though I have no beef with them, it was not the same like with Matrix and what later became too easy. So that's why I waited, because all actually contacted me and said that they want me there. So I declined. Okay.
Let me ask about some of the players in this team then, because I actually think some of these maybe aren't as well known as well. So actually, Brunk is another one that's forgotten. He's like the AWPer of this team. Who was this guy? He seemed like he had a very wacky personality.
Yeah, we all had wacky personalities, right, okay. but he was the next level though. Yeah. God damn it. I actually played World of Warcraft with him later.
All right.
Fisker. But he didn't stay that long. We replaced him for Spawn.
Understandably.
Yeah. But he was a fun personality. Was he really the AWPer? Maybe he was. Yeah,
maybe
I guess
he did
was.
it some of the time. Who knows? I think so, though.
Yeah.
And then the other player was, look, people already know Fisker and Al from SK later, etc. But the other one that they kind of dropped out of this was filur. Yeah, who was this guy?
My favorite. He was very tactical player, and he was the one that set everything up for me, so I could go on frag, so to say. We were a radar team.
Right.
So he may not have gotten all the frags, but he made sure that the rest of us got me or Spawn, whoever he went with. So he excellent tactical player, funny as hell. He was also RTS player. He played a lot of Warcraft.
All right. One of the big events for this team before the big CPL Winter one was when you went to CPL Oslo, and this was the one where you guys came second and lost to the Element eoLithic team, if you remember this one.
Yeah.
Can you give me some thoughts on this tournament? Should you have won this one? I feel like at the time, I'm pretty sure you guys were even like slamming the desks and shit when you were losing.
Me personally was never like that, but yeah, there were some desk slamming. Absolutely, I never got mad in CS ever. I think you can count it like on one hand the times I actually got mad, and they're all everyone else's fault.
Right.
But yeah, eoLithic were very good. They played better. They played good, and we didn't play as good. But everyone thought that we should have won that game as well. So
right.
Yeah, I don't know. It was so long ago. I don't remember the game.
No, it's all good.
It was on Nuke, I think. But yeah, they simply played good, and Element did a very good tournament.
Yes.
Which were their best player, I think.
I think so. By the way, in this era, if people don't understand the context, the other reason why, if you're in any of these matches, like this one, you're supposed to win, is because, like, for example, if Norwegians made a team like this with a bunch of the good players, yeah, they could be pretty good. But at the time, it wasn't an exaggeration. Sweden was literally the best at CS. And in fact, I often tell people, it's funny that if someone meets Swedish people, ScreaM, they always get this sense of like, oh, they're so like polite and, you know, kind of shy. And I always tell them, you just don't know them, because if you knew behind the scenes, they were all mad arrogant. They all thought they were the best. The Swedish team should win the event, right?
It's true. It is true what you're saying there. But the Norwegians are very close to us as well,
right?
in terms of skill. But yeah, Swedes are very arrogant. They always think they're the best. But to be fair, we kind of were the best for a very long time.
Yeah.
In Quake as well.
Yes.
So it bled out to CS. My mental approach to when I was playing, that everyone was just as good as me or even better.
Okay.
I never saw someone below me or above me. If they can do that cool move, I can do that cool move, and I just assume that if I can do it, they can do it too. So I never underestimated someone in that sense. And I never got scared of a player either, like Potti or HeatoN, which everyone was scared of at the time.
When you say that you didn't slam the desk, you didn't. Were you someone? Were you just good under pressure? You didn't have any reaction.
I was good under pressure, yeah. And what's the point of slamming the desk or the gear? I mean, a good example of that is when we handed a win from the World Cyber Games into easy to A-laget.
Sure. Yes.
That if I don't slam the desk there or show any boo-hoo face, then I never did.
Right. Again, if people don't know the concept, yeah, go on.
I can tell you that there was a lot of desk slamming.
Oh, sure. Let me ask, because if people don't know, also an interesting detail: the World Cyber Games came along and it had its qualifying Sweden. Actually, went to this event, and basically, because SK at the time had Norwegian players, they weren't even playing. So actually, it was like quite wide open. Everyone thought like, Vesslan's team, your team, everyone thought like, hey, it's our chance to win. And famously, this is probably, I think, the craziest upset ever in CS history. Like this team, look, there was a couple of players like Quick ended up being good. Bro, most of those players never even did anything in CS ever. Just that one day, it was like a miracle, wasn't it? Like they were just, I don't even know how they won, mate.
Well, there were several reasons for that. The primary reason was at that time you weren't allowed to have your config, but they actually had their config, and the default setting for EX interp was 0.1, and they had a 0.6 0-1.
Right.
That made a lot of difference,
Yes.
but that alone is not the reason we lost. There it came to people started bullshitting and underestimating and not focusing.
Right. You think people just assumed once you made the final, like we basically won already?
They themselves assumed it. They were also before the game like, yeah, thanks for a good game.
So they kind of played without pressure, I see, right.
Yes.
Right.
That probably is the biggest upset ever.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not even, by the way, it's fair. No, it's cool that you also say that they also didn't think they could win, because I'm not trying to diss them. They just weren't top players.
They weren't. There's nowhere else to put it. So
yes, as you say, before the team got to the big CPL, the one in America, you got in Spawn. Now it totally understand. Obviously, everyone knows Spawn. By the way, he became a very famous player too. But if people don't know, it's funny because he obviously himself used to actually have a similar rep. People used to go, "Oh, he's an onliner," or "He's not that good online." Like, bro, this guy might be one of the best LAN players to ever play any game. Like, he was insane, right?
Yes, I took him into Matrix. That's why I guess he was known as an onliner, but he also had balls of steel and nerves on the outside, basically. He didn't care. He never got nervous, as far as I know. So, but he was he was the ninja. He was so good in every aspect. Perfect game sense, and he always ended up in these bizarre situations where he could be behind the 3 people and just stand there and no one is even looking.
By the way, you mentioned earlier when you were talking about some of the different players you like to play with, right? I've always thought an interesting thing is, in the modern day of CS2 and CSGO, they've had all these different styles of play from different countries and regions. But I always tell people, what people actually call just default CS is actually Swedish CS. That's what the Swedish CS invented, where it's essentially like, there's not really like a super tactical approach. It's more like, you have a simple strat you call, and then people kind of figure it out as players in the round, right?
Yes, that's kind of what I touched earlier with the IGL thingy. That you have a standard, or you call a
base or something
for the round. Yeah, and then you adapt. You listen in on the comms on every other player, and adapt for that. And you have practiced executions based over these scenarios and how it is. So everyone is some kind of in-game leader, depending on what happens during the round, more or less. So if that's what you meant.
What did you, since on paper people are going to look up this tournament and it'll say you came 4th, but it's one of the big CPLs in America, there's a lot of prize money. I'm going to guess for you guys that's underperformance. You probably thought you should have been better.
You mean with Esports United, or?
No, with Team 9 when you took Spawn and you went to the CPL Winter.
Yeah, we ended 4th, yes. We could have won the entire event, I'm gonna say that, but who cares? But that's my opinion, and probably their own also. But we started to have internal issues, and that affected some players more and some people less. And that was because of me, because I was starting to lose my motivation to play. And I announced that I'm gonna stop playing during
the event, right?
Right before the event, but right. It was kind of there, and that understandably did not sit very well with the people, and they tried to convince me to stay, but ultimately, when I set my mind on something, that's how it is.
What was the reason? Why did you want to quit CS at this time? In theory, everything's going up.
Yeah, today in hindsight, you can say that was rather stupid, and I can agree to that. But the reason is lame and simple. It didn't. The girlfriend I had at that time, I was more interested in her than in CS, and she did not function very well with those guys.
Right.
Not at all.
I mean, I will say, by the way, a lot of people, because there was no like gossip site back then, and obviously there wasn't a lot of like media behind the scenes except for the game. I will say that's not as crazy a story as people think. Like, there's a lot of teams back then where you might wonder why a player got worse or left. It's nearly always that like some like girlfriend drama or something went wrong. You know, there's lots of those stories back in the day, right?
Yeah, it kind of is usually the girlfriend drama, and there was another thing actually, but gaming have always been my primary hobby and most likely always will, since the day I was born, more or less. And I don't like to see my hobby as work.
Okay.
Then it becomes very off-putting for me. So when they tried to convince me to see it as work, because we had a lot of sponsorships back then and stuff going on that never landed because of this. But I don't like back then. I don't like the feeling that I am forced to do what I want to do. Then that's very bad for me back then. Today, if I had the knowledge today and could see in the future how streaming and everything would be, then obviously I would make different choices.
Are you someone where, obviously after this, you went back and did Matrix again when it was the Swedish League and it was all that stuff? Does this mean you were already like a bit checked out and you were just playing for the sake of it or something?
That is also the same girlfriend who's like, oh, I want you to play CS again. So
right, now she went the other way, right?
Me being retarded, I'm like, sure, honey. So, but by then I had no motivation to play, so that didn't last.
Because actually, that team, if people don't know,
when I quit, I quit.
Right, because if people don't know, that team was pretty good too. Had Spawn again at one point in time.
Yes,
you had,
it was.
It was a pretty solid squad, right?
Yes, we were good. It was ScreaM, Bulletproof, Legend, and cyphoneR and Spawn. We were very good.
Of those names, the one I would ask you is cyphoneR, actually, the AWPer, if people remember. This guy seemed really good, bro. I remember watching a bunch of his demos and be like, why isn't this guy in like an IP or SK or something? He seemed really good.
Yeah, he kind of same personality like me. He didn't care. He wanted to play with his friends. At that time, very shy guy. So he simply didn't want to play with anyone else other than Matrix.
By the way, one thing that I also, to put it in context, would probably be interesting to a modern CS fan is in the modern day, I mean, not as much in CS2, but in CSGO, by the end, the AWPers just dominated the game. Like, if you ever looked at those HLTV, it was just all the AWPers from all the star teams. But actually, back in this era, it was all riflers. It was all people like you and Potti. In fact, I used to even say back then, I thought, actually, there weren't that many good AWPers. A lot of them looked like they kind of choked on LAN or something, you know?
Yes, the fun part is the AWP was stronger back when I played.
Yeah, way stronger,
People weren't good enough to play it. Simple. If a modern AWPer today were to play back then with his skill today, he would just butcher. Yeah, he would just butcher everything.
Yes.
The tech behind the AWP was so much more sophisticated. You could do so many more cool stuff with it. It was a very good tool to move silently back when I played. If you tap the AD while moving forward, you had a perfect speed before you started making footsteps. So it was extremely fast to walk around with it and stuff like that. And the weapon switch was also a lot faster. You could move around without any aim punch. But I don't know why. There wasn't many AWPers, but Medium was one of the better ones when he played.
There's a couple of names, but it was very few. I agree. I used to even think back then it's one of those guns where online everyone was trying to use it and they looked all amazing. Then you got to the lab, it was just all rifles, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes. Many people are even today are very nervous at LAN for some reason. I don't know why. I never understood that aspect. If you've done so many LANs and you know yourself are a very good player, why would you be nervous? I never understood that.
I saw that.
HeatoN, one of the greatest player ever. Also, he was a very nervous guy at the events.
Yeah, he could be right.
And I never understood that.
Yes.
Everyone is afraid of him, but there he is sitting there nervous.
Yes. Especially because if you think about it, not only was he really skilled, but he also had such a extrovert personality. It was always kind of crazy to me that he had that weird. He would just get a bit tense, wouldn't he?
Very tensed, and he could sit and shake, and the table was shaking. But
his knee would be doing that thing like that the whole time.
Yeah. But that is hyper energy.
Sure.
I could also sit and having ADHD or whatever.
Everyone needs a support network, and mine is, of course, my Patreon community, the ScreaM, who in many ways, they're the Sonny to my Cher, saying, I got you, babe. So this video and all the others on my channel were kindly supported by the following names: Ahmed Haju, Mac Pugnaccio Rakula, Adam Tomlin, Animosity, Jensen Go, Tosh, Toucan, and you know it. Jerky's Minion, my main man, always going to be referenced, one of the best patrons of all time. Would you like to ask a question in my AMA? Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest to say on my channel? Do you want teasers? Find out who the upcoming Reflections and Talk to Thorin interviews are. Maybe you want to do one of those long discussions where you get to set the topics we talk about. Well, if any of these or others appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the ScreaM today via the Patreon link in the description box below.